Hello everyone and welcome back to our Vim plugin video. So this week we're going to be covering vim-visual-multi. Vim-visual-multi is a plugin that allows you to create multiple cursors on whichever lines that you like or on certain strings and modify that area that your cursor is on or that your multiple cursors are on. So if you're familiar with Sublime Text, it's very similar to their multiple cursor feature, where you have multiple cursors and you can modify text on all of these cursors that you've defined in place. So in this video, we're going to go over how to install vim-visual-multi. There are some special configurations that I think you should have to make this work properly. We're going to go over some custom key mappings that I like to use and I feel make the whole experience a little easier. And also we're going to go through three or four exercises at the very end to see how vim-visual-multi could be useful. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about how to install visual-multi. I use a plugin manager called Lazy to install all of my plugins. If you're not familiar with Lazy, I have a video on that I will link up here on the top right. But what we're saying here is, hey Lazy, take everything that's defined in the plugins Lazy file and install it. So let's go ahead and go into the plugins Lazy file. And then we'll go all the way to the bottom, Shift G, and you can see that I've already added a few lines here to install visual-multi. So first you just give it the path of the GitHub repo, and then we have an init function defined which sets certain settings. So the first settings that we set are these VM default mappings and VM maps setting. And essentially what this is saying here is that we're turning off all of the default mappings for visual-multi. Since we're going to be defining our own mappings, we don't need the default ones, so we turn them off. And then this last one here is also important. This one's for adding a cursor at a position and making the user experience just a little bit better. We'll talk about this a little later. Cool, so now let's talk about key mappings and how to define our specific user mappings. I keep all of my key mappings in a file called keymappings.lua. Makes sense. I go into that file, Shift G to go all the way down, and you'll see here that I have this wk.register blocks defined. WK stands for which key. Which key is a plugin that allows you to pop up this little cheat sheet here, down here, for all of the mappings that are available to you. If you want to know more about which key and how to install it, I'll link a video up in the top right over here on a video that I did on which key. So let's talk about what key mappings I'll be defining with visual-multi. The first one I define here is select all. What this will do is select all of the words that are under your cursor and put a cursor, a visual-multi cursor on them. So this is kind of confusing because I'm kind of overloading terminology here. When I talk about a Vim cursor, I talk about the cursor that Vim has natively, but when I talk about a visual-multi cursor, that's a multi-cursor that appears when you're in visual-multi mode. The next mapping that I have is start regex search. This one allows you to search for a specific regex pattern and automatically put multi-cursors on them when you hit enter. We'll see examples of these later on. The next mapping is add cursor at position. That's just exactly what it sounds like. It adds a multi-cursor where your Vim cursor is at that position. And then this next one is kind of interesting. Visual cursors with delay is my own function that I've implemented up here, which will call Vim visual cursors, delay for 200 milliseconds, and then Shift A. So what that will do is that it'll allow you to select certain lines in visual mode, hit this key mapping, and automatically put a multi-cursor at the end of each of these lines that you've selected in visual mode. We'll see an example of that later on. And then we have VM toggle mappings, which is important with using this key mapping here, add cursor at position. We'll talk about this as well. So those are all the key mappings that you would need. And yeah, that's it. All right, so now what we want to do is I want to show you certain situations in which you would use visual-multi. So we're going to go through 3 exercises, and each exercise will show you the usefulness of all of these key mappings here, or one of these key mappings here. Let's go ahead and go into exercise 1 using our buffer line key mappings here. And for this exercise, what we want to do is, the goal of this exercise is we want to remove these quoted V's from these lines here. So if we want to do that without visual multi, maybe you use a macro, or maybe you just do it manually, something like this. But with visual multi, there's a different way you can do it. If you want to add cursors to a specific position, we would use our mapping leader, M, and then P for adding a cursor at position. And what that does, it adds a visual multi cursor where your Vim cursor is at. So this can be kind of confusing because terminology is kind of overloaded, but there's your Vim cursor and then there are the visual multi cursors, two different things. So in this case, we're adding a visual multi cursor at a certain position. So you do that with leader MP. And then I go down, I move my Vim cursor over to where I want my visual multi cursor to appear next. So I want to add another cursor here. I do leader MP to add a cursor there. And then I want one here as well. So leader MP. And now you can see here that I have these underscores that appear. This is where my visual multi cursors are at right now. However, it's not enough just to go into insert mode and start typing something. Visual multi has this concept of mappings that can override your standard Vim mappings. So if I go into insert mode right now, that's a standard Vim mapping to go into insert mode. I want to go into insert mode in visual multi with all of my visual multi cursors. To do that, I have to activate the visual multi mappings. So I hit leader key, M, and then O for toggling mappings here. So hit O. And once I've done that, I can hit insert or I for insert mode. That would go into insert mode in visual multi. So now I can start typing whatever I'd like, and those changes will be reflected across all of my visual multi cursors. But in this case, the exercise was to remove the quoted V's. So I'll do that by hitting backspace, remove that extra comma there. You can hit escape to exit insert mode, hit escape again to exit visual multi mode. So there's kind of a little bit of a difference in learning curve there, but once you get used to it, it's not too bad. All right, moving on to our second exercise here. Our second exercise is going to show us how visual multi select all works. So in this exercise, the goal is to change width to W and height to H. So there are multiple occurrences of width, multiple occurrences of height, and we can use visual multi cursors to change them. To do that, we put our Vim cursor over the word width, hit leader key, M, and then A for select all. That's going to select all of the words that are under your Vim cursor and automatically start a visual multi cursors on them. So we'll hit A to do that. And then right after you do that, you're in visual multi mode. So all of the visual multi mappings are activated at this point. So you can just go towards the end here, hit insert mode, backspace to change width to W. Now we want to do the same thing for height. So we'll do the same thing. Leader, M, select all, move our cursor over to the end here, go into visual multi insert mode, backspace to change height to H, and escape to exit visual multi mode, escape again, and now we've exited visual multi mode. Save that, and that's it for exercise 2. Let's move on to exercise 3. Okay, so for our final exercise, we're going to demonstrate visual cursors. This will allow you to create visual multi cursors on the lines that you have selected in Vim visual mode. And because of that little neat delay function that I showed you earlier, we're able to do it in such a way where your multi-cursor, your visual multi-cursor automatically goes to the end of the line. So it makes it really easy to add any text at the end of multiple lines at once. All right, so the goal of this exercise is we want to add department equals engineering as a key value pair at the end of each one of these tables. So in order to do that, we're going to select these 3 lines in Vim's visual mode, and then we're going to press leader key, M, and then V to toggle visual cursors. All right, so now you can see here that I'm at the end of my line and I'm in visual multi mode. So I do Shift A to append at the end of the line. And at this point in time, I can go ahead and make my modifications. So we want department equals engineering. And then we'll close that off, add the comma, exit to exit insert mode, visual multi insert mode, exit again to exit visual multi. All right, folks. Well, that concludes our weekly NeoVim plugin video, or Vim plugin video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please check out my other videos, hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.